Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of the Nurtured by Nature podcast. Today I'm delighted to be joined in conversation by the fabulous Wendy Sweet. Wendy lives in the hills on the beautiful west coast of County Mayo in Ireland. Alongside her husband Steve, they have created an oasis for nature and started their business Woo in the Willows. During this inspiring episode, we explored how a closer look at the ingredients list on the back of a skin cream and her own journey with cancer led Wendy to question what she was putting on her skin, and ultimately the creation of their own beautiful range of natural botanical skin creams and products. Wendy openly shares both her passion and depth of knowledge about the healing properties of plants and herbs, from the diverse range of lavenders at the heart of Woo in the Willows homegrown botanicals to the powerhouse that comes in the form of the very familiar but humble little daisy. I learn how, inspired by Mary Reynolds' We Are the Ark, in just a short time they have helped nature begin to reclaim their patch, and how every day we have the opportunity to learn and be amazed by the world around us, and that by simply quietly taking our own journey we can unexpectedly inspire others, which can lead to changes we simply couldn't have planned. Okay, well, welcome Wendy, and thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Nurtured by Nature podcast. I tend to just get started by asking people to share a little bit about their nature story and what nature perhaps means to you, how it's been a part of your life, and if that's evolved over time. If you were, you loved it from childhood, or maybe it's something
Yeah.
you've discovered more recently.
Okay. Right. Well, thank you for asking me on. Well, I was actually born in the countryside when there still was somewhere in the county of Essex, many years ago. So from a very early age, I grew up amongst nature. My mother was a keen gardener, though they originally moved from the city to Essex, but I was born in Essex. And for 11 years, I had this idyllic childhood of playing with friends, playing in fields, bringing home half dead mice that the cats have caught and trying to make them better, growing stuff, and saving all the dumped cats that used to be kind of unfortunately dumped at the farm,
Yeah.
trying to make them unferal and rehome them. So straight from a very early age, as probably as far as I can remember, I've always had an interest in making potions and stuff. Even I'm surprised we didn't even kill the little lad next door, me and my friend, because we used to make him eat it all. Um, mud pies and all sorts. So I've always had that inside me from a very early age. And then life changed for me for about age 11. And my mum moved to a more modern place, which was stuck in the middle of suburbia in a new town. So from the age of 11, probably till late 20s, I moved to Cornwall then. But in that time, I had really a little tiny garden of my mum and dad's, and I felt like a square plug in a round hole almost. I never fitted
Yeah.
into that setting really.
Yeah.
So I moved to Cornwall to become a little bit more rural, hopefully. But obviously, again, you have the plans, but they don't come to fruition. So I married a Cornishman, and then 6, 7 years ago now, we came to Ireland to see a
Oh,
friend,
wow.
and we decided that we were going to sell our one-bedroom flat and move to Ireland. For 20 odd years, I was running a gardening business in Cornwall.
Oh,
So
okay.
living in a flat, but that's how I kept in with the
Oh, wow.
outside work and the nature. And
Yeah.
I also had allotments, which I grew my own vegetables and stuff like that. Volunteered at a dog's home, rescuing and stuff like that. So when we moved here, we was able to buy a ransacked house, I suppose. It was been left for years. on a just under 2 acre
Oh,
plot
wow.
that
Oh,
was
a big,
been left for 10
yeah.
years plus as well. So it
Oh,
was
wow.
almost gone past its best, to be honest. It's only
Yeah.
ever been used as grazing. So like most commercial farmers, they'll use commercial feeds and commercial fertilizers and
Yeah. Yeah.
spray killers. So we moved to the plot we are now, and everything was kind of waist high in rushes out there and
Okay.
nettles. There was no worms in the soil. I've never had a garden where there's never been a worm in the soil.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but the wildlife we had was hares, which was
Oh, lovely.
beautiful,
Yeah.
and frogs. So that was my starting point, really. We started just cutting and cutting and cutting to get the rushes weakened off a bit, and
Yeah.
digging ditches, all
To,
by hand, both of
wow.
us, to get the soil redrained again, installing a pond for the frogs, and to divert the spring. We've got springs that naturally bubble up here, so all that water was just leaching across the land. So we contained it, we built a pond up, like dammed it almost, and
Yeah.
then the overflow that goes back into the ditches, which goes down into the sea. So the frogs have all got a safe haven now where they can spawn without getting washed away when it's heavy
Yeah.
rainfall at the ditches. The hares still lay their leverets here. I always have at
Oh,
least 4 or 5
wow.
baby leverets
Oh,
born on
how
the land every
beautiful.
year. So I haven't disturbed them too much. And then we started planting trees, because obviously we're very open here. There's no shelter belt. So they're still quite young. It's still quite a young woodland. Some are not very tall at all, really, to be honest. But that time will come, and planted probably not short of 400 trees on the land.
Oh, wow.
So
Amazing. Gosh,
some,
goodness me.
yeah, some for coppicing, some to feed the birds, some for shelter for them and us. So the bird life has also gone up here. So now we have blue tits nesting in old kettles that I've hung up in the
Oh,
trees,
lovely.
robins, a pheasant comes every day and gets fed. Crows were born on the land 2 years ago, so they hang around constantly.
Oh,
Blackbirds, robins, wrens,
yeah.
it's idyllic. Yeah, yeah.
Just
Uh,
coming back more into balance rather than just like
yes,
you said,
yeah,
one species, the rushes, particularly sort of predominating, and
exactly.
now
Yeah,
given a
because of
chance.
just because of the sodden wet soil, really, and it wasn't draining anywhere. And the rushes actually act like a sponge,
Yeah,
so they absorb all that water, and they'll even draw it all in even more and hold it on the land.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and this was all done without poison. So, I'm very proud of what we've done when I think about them. I mean, digging great big rocks out of the land and moving them on rollers with bars like the Egyptians moved the pyramids around. This is how me and my husband worked, and put new
Wow.
roof on the home and everything. So, I mean, there's still lots to do, but obviously COVID came along, and I kind of thought, we need to kind of hopefully make this more sustainable for living as well. I've done the wildlife bit where the and I can keep encouraging that. And I'm part of the ARC movement, with the
Oh,
Mary
the
Reynolds
yeah,
thing as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We've
Uh,
we touched on that with Laura Sweet
yes,
as
that's
well. Yeah,
right. That's how
another
we met.
sweet.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Good
yeah,
Laura. Yeah. Bless
yeah,
her. COVID came along, and basically I was using some commercial moisturizer, and because we couldn't go anywhere because of the lockdown,
yeah,
I had to cut the bottle in half because I could feel there was still product in there and I couldn't get it out. Well, on the
yeah,
cutting the bottle down, when you've got time to actually stop and look what you're doing,
yeah,
the numbers on the back of this bottle was actually quite frightening of what I
yeah,
was putting on my skin, and it was portrayed as being really. You'd look at it. I've been using it for years, thinking, "Oh, this is really nice," and
yeah,
actually, it wasn't.
yeah,
So then we kind of thought, well, let's see how we can kind of all the knowledge of gardening and designing over the years and herbs. I've always had a big interest in herbs and herbal things. Try and put all this knowledge of herbs into something. So wooing the willows was kind of started, really, to be honest.
yeah.
And so now I started off with 3 kind of different lavenders, all the same angustifolia, but 3 different varieties of it, and about 15 plants. And this year I've upped it to over 20 varieties of
Oh,
lavender
wow,
and nearly
wow.
400 plants.
Oh,
So
amazing.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's incredible, isn't it? Because I know a lot of sort of the lay people, shall we say, would just you say lavender and they just they don't realize there's such a huge diversity of different species, and but they all have
Oh
slightly
yeah.
different properties as well, don't they,
Oh,
if you're
for sure.
using
Yeah,
them
for
in.
sure. I mean, there's 45 different species of lavender
Wow,
and over
okay.
450 different varieties.
Wow.
So just to name a few, you've got like the spike lavenders, which are actually a lavardin,
Okay.
and they'd be the ones that like the grossos and the edelweiss, and they're the crosses between mostly the Portuguese lavender, which is the stokas, and the English lavender. But what happens with them is they have more camphor in the oil,
Okay.
so you wouldn't be able to really use that if you was pregnant.
Right.
It won't be do you too good, to be
Yeah.
honest. But it obviously a qualified masseur would know that, but
Yeah.
she would use it on deep muscle pain,
Okay. Yeah.
where the angustifolia oil is the one that's the gentler one, that's the one that goes into all our body products. So
Yeah.
I grow the
Okay.
grosso, but I turn that into things to keep the moth out the presses
Okay.
because of
Yeah.
the camphor.
Yeah.
And then I use all the angustifolia, then either the edible ones, or they go into oil, or they go into distilled waters, or dried and go back into the products as
Oh,
salts and flakes and stuff
wow.
like that. So yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it's
amazing. And
yeah, yeah,
it is, I do find it fascinating because there's so much out there in the natural world, isn't there? And but you do need to know what you're doing as well. I think you've
oh
touched a
yes,
little
you
bit on that
do
there,
need
that
to know. Yes,
yeah,
yeah,
just
for
because it's
sure.
natural doesn't mean it's necessarily safe, and you need to,
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely right. I mean, I've got lots of different herbs growing in my garden, from digitalis, foxgloves, to
yeah,
you have to know them. You can't just go out willy-nilly and go, that looks nice, I'll put that in to see what that does, because obviously some of them are quite toxic.
yeah,
So, and even down to the lavenders, you need to know what your lavenders are. I've studied for probably well over a year now, and I've got probably 8 or 9 different lavender books. And I found the perfect lavender book this about 2 weeks ago, and it's one from Kew Gardens that
oh,
they,
okay,
you know.
yeah,
So I ordered that in, and it is just like the lavender Bible,
yeah,
But all this knowledge, I don't use anything until I've researched and
yeah,
researched. I mean, I studied with the RHS many years ago, so I've got RHS books here. I don't rely on the computer to tell me. I will flick through a book for
yeah,
hours
yeah,
and cross-reference that book with that book and that
yeah,
book with that book.
yeah.
And they're
That's
all proper
It's really
official
important.
books.
Yeah, it's
It
really
is, yes.
important to make sure that you know how to identify everything, and
Exactly.
yeah,
Well, I mean, there's been quite a few accidents, to be honest, with aloe veras and agaves, apparently on this amazing world of TikTok. Because a young agave will look like aloe vera,
right, okay,
but it'll poison you. It'll
yeah,
make you quite ill. Do you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
So you need to know your difference between them as well. And obviously that sometimes they get sold as well as the wrong thing as
yeah,
well. So it's not everybody's fault either. It
yeah,
is sometimes the suppliers. So I never really even trust what's on a label 100%. I'll still
yeah.
go home and research it myself.
And your years of experience as well, you'd notice as well if you'd be like, hang on, that's not quite what I would
Yes,
expect it to look and touch, feel, and smell
exactly.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So we're at that position now where we've got a copper still. So we actually distill all our own hydrosols now. And obviously the byproduct of some of the, like the rosemary or the lavender, is the essential oil. So the essential oil goes back into our products as well now. So
oh
yeah,
wow,
it's beautiful. It's a beautiful
wow.
process, and yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and
it's
I think
lovely.
do you, I mean, I think when you get look into these things, you get more of a reverence for the plants as well, don't you? When you realize
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
all of the goodness and things that they can do, it's
Yes, yeah.
just
I mean, I mean, I haven't got the room to be a lavender farmer like they do in Provence, or I mean, they got acres and acres of it.
yeah,
And when this journey with me, when I didn't have so many lavenders started, I had to buy bags of lavender in, and the color of the lavender was like chalk and cheese to
yeah,
the lavender that I grow, because it's mass grown, it's
yeah,
mass dried, it's mass cut, so it kind of probably is maybe a 6 months to a year old, maybe even before it
yeah,
gets to me, where my stuff
yeah,
is still dried so gently
Yeah.
and it's still so blue when it goes back into the products, the dried stuff. It's not got
Yeah.
grey on it or anything. It's just
Yeah.
so different. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting when you touched on like looking at your moisturizing products because I actually sort of followed that a little bit of that journey myself. I
Yes.
don't make my own products like you. I didn't take that step, but a few years ago I had problems with adrenal fatigue and thyroid
Oh, okay,
issues
yeah.
and became very conscious of like all the toxins and everything that was in
Yes,
products, and it is quite frightening when you you start to
it
look at
is.
labels
Yeah,
and even things that sort of profess to be natural, and they still have a huge amount of things in it that doesn't really need to be there. Um,
exactly, exactly. I mean, obviously, when you're a big manufacturer, you need to, obviously, it's pumped through machines, so it can't be as thick. So then they add water in to make it go further. And as soon as you mix like a shea butter and an oil with water, that's when the mold starts. So
okay,
then you have to put in all the not so funky
and yeah,
preservatives and
to
stuff.
give
Do you
it a
know what I mean?
shelf life as well because it's
Exactly.
of the
Where
whole
mine
process.
is
Yeah,
just pure product, you
yeah,
know.
wow.
So yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm very proud of what we've achieved, really. And I mean, we've still got a long way to go. We're still early stages, really, to
Yeah.
be honest.
So
So,
what products have you got at the moment? You said you got a
we
couple.
do three different kinds of body moisturizers, which you can put on your face. I'm just one of those people. Why do we have to complicate everything?
Yeah,
Why do we go to the supermarket and have 20 different varieties of toothpaste
yeah,
when I know that they only need two?
yeah,
And most of them are the only two. They've just changed color or whatever.
yeah,
Do you know?
yeah.
So it's just to catch. So um, I do three body moisturizers, which is a rose oil based one, a lavender oil based one, and then there's a carrageen Irish moss, which is a seaweed based one,
Oh, okay.
which just gives it a little bit more oomph if you've got slightly older skin. And that one is also got our lavender oil in it, and then a little bit of lime oil and a little bit of spearmint oil, just to change
Okay.
the smell of it and make it
Yeah,
feel a bit fresh, like the seaweed smell,
yeah,
like a seaside. Um, we do bath salts. Most of it is lavender based with rose. And then we do a seaweed, again, Irish seaweed based one as well, which is serrated rack and dillisk in it, with the lavender, lime, and spearmint oil in that as
yeah.
well. We do foot soaps, peppermint in, and lavender oil, and a mixture of peppermint and lavender dried, and gorse or wims,
Okay,
because
yeah,
that's an anti-inflammatory as well, and it makes it look pretty with the yellow in.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's
yeah,
beautiful.
uh,
Gorse is
it,
beautiful, isn't
it
it?
it
Yeah,
is, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And living in Cornwall so long, gorse is a big part of Cornwall, you know.
yeah,
So when we used to travel back home years ago, when we're going back home to Cornwall, driving down the A30, smell that coconut smell of the gorse, do you know?
yeah.
So yeah, which I've got a gorse bush here now, so I can pick my own gorse here. Um, we do soaps, we do exfoliating soaps, we do the moth prevention, like the sachets or the wands made out of the spike lavenders, the
Okay.
lavandines. We do shaving balms and shave oils, midge-off oil, which is necessary in the west of Ireland or most parts of Ireland because you get bitten alive.
And
Um,
is that all that's all natural as well, is it? That you're
that is all
yeah.
natural. Now, I admit I do not grow the oil for that, but we do use a indigenous recipe that
Okay.
came from America originally.
Oh
So
wow.
it has got vetiver in and cedarwood
Oh
oil,
nice. Oh
and it
lovely.
does stop them getting bitten. And I do a tick off spray,
Oh, that's
and
quite useful.
yeah,
Very, yeah.
yeah, and then bath melts and exfoliating, moisturizing and exfoliating body buttons, which are done with poppy seeds and crushed rose petals and oils in
Oh,
that as
wow.
well.
Oh,
So yeah, we
lovely.
do quite a
Yeah,
few
wow.
bits, really, considered.
You've
My mind's always going over of what next can we do, do you know,
I
like,
was gonna, I was gonna say
yeah,
you've dived right in there, haven't you?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then obviously during the summer, which are quite seasonal for us, like this summer, we started infusing all. Well, I did the oils anyway, like the cooking oils, because I do grow a lot of tarragon and sage and rosemary, obviously, and thymes. So this year we started doing infused cooking salts as well with Atlantic salts. So yeah,
nice.
but the garden is always full of bees through the summer, and yeah, it's beautiful out there. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, that's the beautiful thing, isn't it? Is
Yes,
actually, it's good for us, but you're actually creating
yeah.
this beautiful environment as well.
Exactly, and we have worms. I'm so
Yeah.
delighted. Every time now we plant a tree, instead of digging up a bit of rubbish that's been buried, we actually make a space, and there's a worm there. You're like, oh,
Oh,
lift it out the way,
yeah.
put the tree in, put the worm back.
It's lovely to find someone who's excited about worms. I know.
Oh, I
It's,
know.
I
I
mean,
am so excited about the worms, I tell you. And I had to actually get a teacup from a friend, believe it or not, from their compost bin to introduce to my compost bins because there was none on the land. And that's how I got my worms. And now they're spreading around all over the 2 acres, nearly 6 years later. So,
I've got two horses, and they live out all year round, and we take the manure off the field, and we have a big
oh, lovely.
manure
I could do
pile.
with some of that.
And it's just like this worm metropolis, and
Exactly,
and
exactly.
yeah, it's just, you just can't beat it, can you? And
No, you cannot. No, no,
yeah,
it's amazing, really. I mean, to be honest, if I had a little bit more land, I'd probably have a Connemara or a couple of donkeys as well, just to help me in
yeah,
that process side
yeah,
as well. Do you know, of using the black gold, as I call it, their
yeah.
manure. But what we what we do now, so in areas now, I basically, where the land has been so bad, I chop and drop, as I call it. So we
Okay,
just chop, and sometimes I'll just lay down loads and loads of brown cardboard, and then I just dump grass clippings on top of it and chop that whatever I'm
yeah,
throwing away that I don't want in my compost just goes straight on. And after a while, that land has started to build up, and now we've got trees taken in that area as well. So
yeah.
it just takes a long time for the bad stuff to leach out, about 5 years. And then obviously, because they've got a lot to contend with, because obviously there's stuff probably under there that we don't know about over the years, like they did in the UK. Old farmers used to bury stuff,
Oh
and
yeah, they love they
so they
love they
have to
love to
deal with
bury a bit of stuff, don't they?
they
Unfortunately.
so they have to, so it has to deal with that. But I last summer, that even the trees are that they're taller than me, and I'm 5'2", so I was absolutely delighted in that. They've come on where there was only like a foot high little sapling went in,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then all of a sudden you're actually looking at them going, oh, you're a bit taller now. That's
yeah,
nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
yeah.
lovely.
No,
So
it's something. I don't know. They almost like your children, aren't they? That you like you sort of,
oh yeah,
you almost do like that class count, like in the
yeah,
spring. Like, have you got your
exactly. Yeah.
leaves on yet? And
Yeah, yeah. And then
yeah,
obviously the hares like to go round and prune a few things off now and then as well. Do you know what I mean? You're like, oh no, there goes another tree. You're just sitting there because they're so used to us. They're not scared of us. It's really
yeah,
bizarre. So you'll go out and you'll go, stop doing that. Now most hares are just bolt away. The
yeah,
ones that are actually born on this land that see us nearly every day, they just look at us, go, you're talking to me.
yeah,
And then just carry on.
yeah.
Okay. Most of them reshoot again. So, the alders and the apple trees will reshoot after time again, and the rowans. So,
Yeah, well, I guess that's the thing. They've evolved together, haven't they?
exactly.
And so
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, whilst we might think, oh my goodness, no, and
exactly.
actually,
Yeah.
you know,
Sometimes you can help nature, but then you just have to let it be. And that's what we do. What we do basically in all what I would call the wild areas as such, we just mow a pathway, a single pathway round it all. So we can walk around it and just keep check. And
yeah,
then we just leave it to do its own thing mainly. Yeah. I mean, we had a heron in the wild pond the other day. I was like, oh my God, look at that. That's the first time I've ever seen a heron up here. So
oh wow, so
yeah.
he's found you now.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's only frogs in there because it is a wildlife pond. So,
yeah,
but yeah, he's obviously clocked the water because
yeah,
we are surrounded. We're in the hills of County Mayo, so it's sheep farming country we're
yeah,
in. So which are also beautiful. But obviously, my little bit here is not about the sheep. It's about what would have been centuries ago, hopefully. So
Yeah.
we're planting as many native trees as we can, mixed in with a few other ones, just as a little bit more shelter belt. But yeah, most of it's native planting. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think I watched a little documentary recently about Scotland and about the salmon in the rivers there, and
yeah,
like you kind of in the UK you think of Scotland as like the true wilderness, don't you? And I
yes,
was
yeah,
quite stunned
no,
by them saying that actually like it should have been forested like Alaska,
exactly. It's all
and I was like,
man-made.
wow, and I kind
I
of
know,
and it
I
was, and
know.
I sort of I suddenly had this vision of Alaska, and then I was like, oh wow, it's actually like seems almost barren, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
and it's our perception, isn't it? And like you say, like where you are,
yes, yeah.
with all the sheep,
I mean, if
it should have a more diverse landscape than.
exactly. I mean, if you walk up to the top of the hill where I live, it's quite a high hill. It's not far short of a mountain, to be honest. Up the top of there, there's old bogwood coming out of the land up there, where it used to all be forest
Yeah,
years ago. Do you know?
yeah,
Old oak, it's mostly oak, pine, and yew that you'll
yeah,
find up there in,
yeah,
in big old chunks, and it's the most beautiful thing, but it's rock hard wood. You can hardly cut it, but it
yeah,
does make beautiful sculptures, some of it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, where
So
it's
yeah,
been preserved in the
exactly.
peat
Yeah,
bogs.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So when I
amazing.
did start this kind of little oasis, I suppose, in the middle of all this barrenness, almost beautiful barrenness, but
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
very much like the Highlands of Scotland. People, like some of the purists of the rewilding, would say, "Oh, you should let it all come in naturally." I said, "But there's nothing around
yeah,
for it to come in. All I've got
yeah,
is heather and couch grass for
yeah,
miles." It's
yeah.
like, there is nothing. It has to
Yeah,
be
and
introduced.
like you said, without the worms and things, like
Yeah,
you could be sitting there for decades and decades and decades, and
exactly. And I haven't got
yeah,
that long. I'm
yeah,
60 odd now nearly. So
yeah,
it's kind of like, I'll do my own thing. It's all right. I know what I'm doing. I'll just carry on. I just,
yeah, yeah. But I think there is a balance, isn't there? And
oh,
sometimes
yeah.
like
Yeah.
nature does need that helping hand to give it that little kick start to
Exactly.
get over that
Exactly.
first sort of tipping
Yeah.
point, and then
So it's got to be done. I mean, we've got stoats. I mean, they're amazing to watch. We don't see them every day, but they're living out old stone walls. And when you do see them, to watch them move in and out, weaving in and out, they
yeah,
just look the most amazing creatures. We don't have pets up here because obviously, if I did have anything, it would be like a horse or a donkey, something that's a bit more organic. I can't have cats and dogs up here. I don't have chickens up here because obviously we do forage a lot off our land and put it back in our products. So for
yeah,
health reasons, I had to stop friends
yeah,
even bringing their dogs up. I'm going, we can't have dogs up here anymore now.
yeah.
This is what we're doing, and dogs and body products don't quite mix.
No, no, sadly, no.
Yeah, yeah. But if I
Yeah,
if I need a dog fix, I'm more than welcome to go over to the farm and see his dogs. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
ruin them, as my neighbour says.
yeah,
It's a lovely place, and you're kind of living alongside the wild side, and it's hard to explain really. It's the energy of the place. It's just, I mean, we've got Bronze Age little tiny encampments, circle of stones just out the back to us, and so there's been people living up here
yeah,
since time begun, probably, since people came over this way, and you kind of like, God, the amount of people that must have walked this land before
yeah.
us, really, it's amazing.
And then there's a sort of humbleness in that as well, in terms of like nature and everything, isn't there?
Yes,
Of like,
yeah,
it's um I often sort of mention how like the more indigenous cultures sort of have this sense of responsibility about the natural world,
yes, yeah,
whereas our sort of more urbanized Western view is often one of like we have the right because we own it. But when you have that sense of like
no,
the people
yeah,
that have come before you, there's going to be people
exactly,
after you, and animals
exactly,
and other things, and you just
yeah.
you have a different a view of your own
um,
life, but
I,
also
I feel that, okay, legally we own it, but actually we don't own anything because we won't be taking any of it with us,
Yeah.
and we're just custodians of it
Yeah.
while we're here. And if I can make it better than what it was when I arrived, I saw corn crakes on this land twice. Corn crakes are actually quite rare in Ireland now,
Yeah.
yet they
Yeah.
were actually a well-known species of bird at certain times of the year. And I was talking to my neighbour, who's just a wee bit older than me, and he can remember hedgehogs being up here. No, we haven't got any hedgehogs yet, but I
Well, with the
around the place.
worms, they might know. Yeah.
Exactly. I've started building stacks of stuff so things can get in there, and
Yeah.
there's like old pallets with logs put on, so there's room
Yeah.
to get under, and I've stuffed it with leaves. So it's all there, just waiting.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Yeah.
that they'll come back one day. But we get dragonflies come out the pond now and everything, so that's lovely to see as well. The dragonflies emerging and damselflies and
And it's
uh,
amazing in such a short time, really, isn't it? Because you said you've been
oh
there, what,
yes,
5 or 6 years?
it'll be, yeah, we've been here for just over 5 years on here. So in May it'll be 6 years, yeah. And kind of the pond went in the summer after. So and it's like you say, it's amazing because the first probably that summer we already noticed diving beetles had moved in, they'd flown in.
Wow.
Some had
Yeah.
pond
It's amazing.
snails. I
It's
don't know where they
amazing
came
how,
from.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's just incredible, isn't it? How
yeah,
how
yeah.
nature seems to just find these places. It's like they sent up a flare or a signal or
Exactly.
something that,
Yeah, yeah,
hey
yeah.
guys, quick over here.
Exactly, exactly. Oh, come this way. And
Yeah.
of course, so now I just laugh with my neighbour. I go, yeah, because he goes, have you seen the fox? Because they're always worried about the fox with lambing. And I go, no. And he goes, you wouldn't tell me, would you? And I went, oh, I don't know. Because he knows I wouldn't. Oh,
Yeah, no, we're a bit the same here. We've got
yeah,
quite a strong farming community, so yeah,
yeah,
we keep a few things under our hat. We're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, no, not seen them at all.
Yeah, so yeah. I mean, to be honest, I'm lucky to have such good neighbours, and we've kind of slipped in really well, considering obviously we are come from Cornwall over to here, and because obviously we got to respect their lifestyle as
Yeah,
well, do you know? So
yeah.
it's worked out really quite well, to be honest. Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah, I think that's important, isn't it? Especially if you're sort of in some respects a bit of a newcomer to somewhere
yes,
and you've
yeah,
got slightly different ideas and objectives and just
yeah,
finding a
yeah,
way to do that in a way that's not
yeah. We've been,
confrontational.
exactly, yeah. And that's the last thing. I mean, I could have stayed in Cornwall and be confrontational with people most of the day there, to be honest. But here, we just we all help each other out if we need a hand. And, and we're not averse to going to help if it's really cold and wet and wild out there, helping him feed the sheep.
Yeah.
We don't mind doing that with him. And he'll pull something out with the tractor if we need it. And yeah, it's all worked really well. I couldn't wish for a better neighbour, actually. That's worked out
Yeah.
lovely. Yeah. And we respect each other's differences. Obviously, the thing with the spraying and all I think that's all stopped in Ireland now. So there'd be no more spraying. But actually, my neighbour actually stopped spraying the year after we moved in. So this
Okay.
land has not been had any spray on it anywhere
Oh, wow.
over the last 5 years.
That's
So
incredible.
yeah, because once I proved to him that through cutting constantly, you don't need to use the spraying, and actually it's
Yeah.
cheaper because spraying's
Yeah,
a lot. Yeah.
and that's well, especially now actually I know over the last year a lot of the inputs for sort of more commercial farming have
Mm,
increased massively. So yeah, if you can show a more economically viable, these people are business people as well, aren't they? So if
exactly.
you
Yeah.
can present it in a way to them that's beneficial to them, then they're not open to
No, exactly. Yeah.
change.
No,
Yeah.
and I think he's quite bemused by us sometimes. Do you know what I mean? He's like, "What are you up to now?" You know what I mean? You'll get nothing to grow here, and then he's like, "All them bushes are all doing well."
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
bless
but
him,
I
yeah,
mean that's an amazing achievement as well, isn't it? And I think
yeah,
something not to be underestimated is actually by taking it on and doing it yourself and not putting not forcing it down other people's throat, but
no,
allowing them to
no,
just observe and see for
Yeah,
themselves. And
exactly.
yeah, and I mean, incredible that, not only have you've got your 2 acres, but actually your impact has been that the farm next door has stopped spraying
Yeah,
themselves,
yeah.
is because they can see, they're like, oh wow,
Well,
actually you're on the
they've
same
all got really,
land. Yeah.
they've all really got bad health issues, the
Yeah.
farmers around here, because they're of that age. They've been
Yeah.
using this stuff all their lives because that's all they've known. And you're kind of like, well, I'm telling you, it's that. You know,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, it is really sad. It's
yeah,
they bless them of, they were told it was completely safe, and why would they doubt that? And
yeah,
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 but a
yeah.
lot of time, they didn't take,
Well,
the precautions and
unfortunately,
things either, did they? So it's,
no,
yeah.
and it's been part of farming in the UK and everywhere really because of the American corporate companies, to be
Yeah.
honest. And it's from the war. It's
Yeah.
a leftover from the war. So
Yeah.
sad but
Yeah.
true.
I think
So I'm the one that still goes down and picks up all the seaweed after a storm and throws it all over me land. And then he'll
yeah.
go to me, my grandfather used to do that. And I go, absolutely.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? Is go
yeah,
is trying to like hang on to these threads of what used to
yeah,
be done before. And yeah, I'm it's I actually started looking into all the damage of sort of herbicides and things, because I
yeah.
actually one of my horses almost died from toxic poisoning, and
Yep,
he had liver
because they
failure.
sprayed all that with glyphosate, or
Yeah.
maybe just to make the
Yeah.
hay go over quicker.
Yeah.
Because we had a little bit of a problem here with it, believe it or not, because um, not going into, but we're on a dry toilet, right? So we run out of some sawdust, so the only thing we could get was chopped hay, and we put it round some trees as a mulch,
Yeah.
and we thought that tree don't look too good,
Yeah.
and it was then we realised that the hay had been sprayed with
Yeah.
glyphosate, and I was like, okay, so we
Yeah.
won't do that anymore.
It's and it's
Yeah.
quite, I mean, that's the thing that's quite shocking. When I started looking into it, I was quite surprised um that how you initially think, oh, it's, sprayed to keep the
Mm,
weeds down and things, but actually it's sprayed on quite a lot of crops just before they're harvested, to as a
exactly, and it's all in
desiccant.
your
And
bread and
yeah.
everything. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's the thing of not having the choice. It's kept. I know they have to put things on bottles and packages, but not most of us don't know what we're eating. Do you know what I mean? And that's what did it for me, because obviously probably 9 years ago now, I did have ovarian cancer.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, we've always ate pretty well because obviously I grew my own food.
Yeah.
But obviously I'm going to see, but we're kind of aware what we're eating. But look at this, what I'm putting on the body, and
Yeah.
whatever you put on your skin, 60% of
Absorbs.
that goes
Yeah.
absorbs into your
Yeah.
blood,
Yeah.
through the layers of the skin, and I said that's terrible. And even there's even some bigger companies that are actually well known for being natural, but they've sold their company out now, and actually they're not. But they've still,
Yeah.
it's got into the psyche of these of people going, oh, they're really good,
Yeah.
you know, and you're kind of like, no, they're not actually.
Yeah.
Look
Yeah.
at the
It's,
E numbers.
yeah, it is really hard. It's a difficult one
Yeah,
to navigate,
yeah,
because like you say, companies that, maybe we sort of grew up with, or they've been
exactly.
around for a long time, that were,
Yeah,
they have, their
yeah,
brand is about ethical and everything,
exactly.
and
I
you're,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, it is quite shocking. But yeah, and I always say to people, look, I don't tell anybody what they should or shouldn't do. I'm not about that, because I take offense if people tell me what I should be doing. Do you know? But as long as we can change a little bit and help, then all them little bits make one big bit somewhere along the line. So it all joins up with somebody else doing a little bit, and somebody else doing a
Yeah.
little bit. And all those little bits actually make a big difference in the end. They might not seem to, because it's not overnight, but they do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, I
it's,
I love that. That's something I really believe in as well, is,
yeah,
I think sometimes it can feel a bit overwhelming, and we sort of feel
yeah,
like, oh,
yeah.
unless we can save the world or change like millions of
No,
people, there's no
and we
hope.
can't,
But yeah,
unfortunately, It's- but I can give the wildlife a safe place here if they need, to,
yeah.
you know, and healthier stuff to nibble around, and we can grow stuff, and it's kind of like, well, this is cool. I mean, if
And
I had the money and I had another maybe 10 acres, that'd be perfect. But
but then,
I probably
yeah,
would.
but your what's the word? Your people are like resonated with you, and they're attracted to that as well, aren't they? So it's like
Yeah, yeah,
as you have the confidence, just do your little bit, and like you're not
yeah.
forcing other people, but they're coming
No,
to you and saying, "Oh, I've seen you've done this, and that worked quite well for you, and
yes,
how
yeah.
did you do that? Because I'd like to do that too." And yeah,
Exactly. And I'm more than happy. I mean, I did have quite a few people come up this summer to look at the lavenders, or to look, and then they'd look around the rest of the magical garden, as they call it. I'm like, oh, right, yeah, yeah, of course you can come up and have a look, and I'm actually quite pleased that they actually leave getting what we're doing.
yeah,
Where if they don't actually come and see it, they just kind of go, well, how does that work then? I can't see how that can work. Because,
yeah.
for example, I bought a lavender from here and it's dead. And you're kind of like, okay. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I
It is,
understand that.
I can empathize with that because I have found lavender it can be a challenge to grow as well. It seems to,
It
yeah,
can, but you must buy the angustifolia lavender, the proper English lavender, and forget all the other ones.
yeah.
I mean, lavandins are okay, but the stokers, the ones with the little fluffy petals on
Oh
the
yeah,
top that
that
most
look
shops sell,
really pretty.
they do not like the winter. So
Okay.
unless you've got a greenhouse that you can lift them in, they're not going to
Ah,
do any good outside all year round. So, but
that's
the
that's
English
good to
lavender
know.
will sit there in -15 and still
Yeah,
survive if it needs to. And trim it. It has to be trimmed every year as well.
yeah, but
You
you have
really have to brutalize it.
do okay, and but you have to that's the thing, isn't it? It's if you've let it go too leggy, then it doesn't
Then it
really.
gets woody and then it
Yeah,
splits.
yeah,
So then you're damaging it then. So
yeah.
really, basically, I prune all mine into like a ball shape, bit misshaped balls sometimes,
Yeah.
but but I'll take it down. So it's probably got about an inch and a half of green left on top,
Okay.
which seems drastic. You're like, oh my God, that's
Yeah.
what most of the plant got. Not for
Yeah.
me, because I'll dry that then.
Yeah.
That will all get dried on a great big rack in the shed as separate. And
Oh,
then that
wow.
all goes back through into the sawdust that I use in my bathroom area. So that all smells of
Oh,
lavender as well. Then it
oh,
all goes
wow.
through the compost. Then after 2 years, after it's all gone through the compost bins, all that compost goes out around all the forestry trees or the woodland trees,
Yeah.
so that they get fed as well. So yeah, there's a big
Yeah.
process in life all the time. There's
And
no quick cut.
no, 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 there isn't. And I like that you composting and things is also a great thing for people to do as well. Obviously, provided
Yes,
they've got a little bit of space to do it.
yes,
But
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you don't need loads of, even 2 bins is enough. If you've got the tiniest garden, you can be composting your vegetable waste that you buy to eat, your salad stuff, your coffee, your newspapers, as long as it's not glossy. There's
Yeah.
tons of stuff. When I'm building up beds here, all I do is get loads and loads of brown paper boxes, cartons, with all the sellotape taken off, obviously, lay them flat. Then I start piling up, and a bit of dirt and a piling up. And then all of a sudden, I've got a raised bed that I can plant stuff that gives their roots out of the wetland
Yeah.
underneath. So
Yeah.
they're sitting a foot higher already. That gives them a good start before they getting down into
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
that's all I do with stuff really. Yeah, sometimes people have come up and it's just like loads of cardboard with dirt all over it. And a load of grass cuttings thrown on top of that. And they're like looking at me and I go, I'm building the land up there.
Yeah. But I mean, that's I
Because it's
think
like a mulch.
yeah, I was going to say we do have this little bit of an obsession with like neat and tidy, don't we? And
Yes,
actually,
yeah.
nature isn't neat and tidy, and sometimes we need to let go
No,
of that neat and tidy
no.
because actually it benefits it, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, when we first moved here, I noticed that the council were vacuuming up in our local town, was vacuuming up all the big tree leaves from, obviously, to stop people slipping on them. It's a health
Yeah.
and safety thing.
Yeah.
But there was bags and bags of them. So I said to them,
What
do you
you
mind if
do?
I take some of these home? And they're
Yeah.
looking at me like I've gone mental, and I
Yeah.
threw them all round the trees, as
Yeah.
mulch,
Yeah.
and that's what I did for about 3 years. Every winter I'd fill the van up with loads of
Wow.
tree leaves, and bring them back and throw them all around the land. Yeah. But
Yeah.
now there's enough trees to be
They've
dropping themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to say they've got their own leaves and they can get going a little bit,
And it's
and
not
yeah,
getting so blown away, because everything used to just blow away, because there was nothing there to kind of keep it in
stop the
place.
wind.
Yeah.
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 So in areas I actually walk now, and there's actually tree leaf mulch, and I get so excited. I go, "Oh my God, look, we've got mulch tree leaves."
Oh,
So
amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, no,
it's a
I think that's the thing is when you start on this journey, you've got to be prepared for you're suddenly going to get excited about things like worms and
exactly,
mulch and
yeah. And
yeah.
bees. Every time I see a different bee or something, if there's an insect or something I don't know, then I'll go through all the books
Yeah.
till I find it. And go, what's that? I've not seen that before. So yeah, and so it makes every day almost like an adventure of learning as well, because there's no way. I mean, I do know a lot of things in respect of, because you're working with them every day almost, but every now and then I go, can't remember the name of that. I'm gonna have to go and find that, because obviously you can only store so much knowledge as well. It's
And but it's lovely, isn't it, when you've got your own little patch like that as well, and something that you
yeah,
might have seen somewhere else, but you've never seen it on your patch, and then it's the first
exactly.
time, and then you're like, oh, is it
Yeah,
just a one-off, or am I going to see it again? And yeah,
exactly, exactly. I mean, we had shrikes come up here, which is a beautiful little bird.
oh
Never
wow,
seen one before in my life.
yeah,
So now I know that shrikes are actually carnivorous, in the respect of they'll actually pick up a bee or pick up something, and they'll
yeah,
stab it on a hawthorn,
yeah,
spike it through,
yeah,
or a bit of barbed wire. And I'm kind
yeah,
of like, oh, and I'm kind of like, well, I don't want it really eating my bees. So I'm kind of like,
yeah.
what do I do about this shrike? But I just leave it. It is all part of nature,
But then
you know.
equally, it's a
Yeah,
testament to the fact that you've obviously got enough insects and bees to attract it now
yeah.
as well.
And the
So yeah,
butterflies,
yeah.
it's wonderful. I mean, some butterflies actually cocoon under our bathroom,
Oh wow,
because the bathroom's raised up. So somehow they get underneath it, and they
yeah,
actually hang on the bottom underneath the bathroom floor in the
wow,
cavity. And
wow.
you're like, wow, that's amazing. So my bathroom is actually like a big butterfly house. That's
Oh,
lovely. Underneath.
that's incredible. Oh,
So yeah,
amazing.
it is beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, every day it just makes me smile. When you wake up and you see blue tits waiting for their foot, like, because I do feed us. I give them wild seed and stuff to help them at the moment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But and the robin, and the pheasant comes every day, and for waiting for food, and you've got the hares out there. It's kind of like, what? Why couldn't you just? You can't help but smile at it. You're like,
No,
just look at it. It's
no,
beautiful.
it is
Yeah.
lovely. I mean, we put a bit of food out, but we do notice as well that they they tend to a lot of the birds they're quite sort of seasonal, and if there is
Yes.
like wild food, they will that's their preference, and we might see
Exactly.
them, and then actually when times are really tough, they'll come and they'll be like, yeah, we need a little bit of a
Yeah.
helping hand at the moment.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm not obsessive about it. I don't hang peanuts out or any of that business. They just get wild food scattered, seed,
yeah,
a little cup of it thrown out around the area over there. And then the top one, like if we have, for example, melted cheese like camembert that I've had for lunch
yeah,
today, that skin then will go out to the crows tomorrow,
yeah, yeah,
and they love it.
yeah.
They're
We
they're actually burying it all. So I might even have camembert cheese trees appear one day.
Oh, my husband would love that. If you can get a camembert tree, you'd be onto a winner there. I think you
I
might
know.
become a millionaire.
But it's just so funny watching them just all kind of, burying it, and then the crows are watching them where they're burying it. So then they're going and robbing it, and you're
Yeah.
kind of like, it's a bit chaotic out there at the moment.
Yeah, no, we get a lot of rooks and crows and jackdaws here as
Yeah.
well, and we love it in the springtime because they seem to come and use our garden as a bit of a like creche for all the
Yes.
youngsters. So they're like dump them there. There's a bit of
Exactly.
food to keep them
The safe
entertained.
space, yeah.
Yeah.
A bit like our leverets, yeah.
Yeah.
The mama rare come down and she'll lay them, and and you go, oh, there's a newborn leveret there because it's so tiny. I mean, they're minute, and then
Yeah.
you just watch this thing grow up into like becoming this gang. All of a sudden, it's hopping around like a rabbit, like a little bunny hop, and then
Yeah.
it'll grow into these little gangly hair legs. So it's like this teenager form of a hair,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it kind of you see it going over the wall, and you go, oh, okay, then you left home, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then it will come back every now and then obviously another maybe the year after it'll come back and have babies as well if it's a
Yeah.
female.
Yeah.
It's kind of generations of them. But when we actually first moved here, we had a little leveret that lived on the. It appeared the same week we moved in, and it only had half an ear,
Oh
one
wow,
side.
okay. Yeah.
So
Quite
and it got
distinctive. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I just called it Scarpa every day we spoke to it, and it wasn't scared to us at all. In fact, it actually brought a whole family back, believe it or not, one day. There was like a
Oh.
mummy hare and little baby leverets all out there. And I'm kind of like, okay, he's brought a whole family this time. Um,
Oh.
but honest to God, if it sees me walking up the lane, it'd actually run towards me,
Oh,
and
lovely.
then it'll
Yeah.
stop and remember it's a hare, and then
Yeah.
it'll take off.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I haven't seen it for 2 years, so I do deeply
Oh.
miss that one. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's. But I have all
Yes.
these generations of his hairs, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? I mean, bless them,
Yeah,
they don't go on forever, but
no,
they're
no.
special while they're around, aren't they? And
Oh, they
yeah.
do, and I even like we've had a couple of stoats that have actually been fighting other stoats, maybe, or there is odd mink around, unfortunately. So it could have even been the mink that took the stoat out. But if I find something dead on the land, then it has to have a proper burial. you know,
Well,
I'm so
it
I'm
is,
going to
it's
see if we need to bury this robin or we need to bury this
yeah.
stoat.
But it's just a reverence for life, isn't
It
it? And
is,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's not, there's no species divide, is there? It's
No,
just
for me, we are all the same. We're not, we might all look different, but actually, we're all animals on this planet.
yeah,
And I think unfortunately, sometimes humankind, like you said, lifts itself above it so much it disconnects from it, and we are all part of the chain.
yeah,
Unfortunately, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
well, that's beautiful, Wendy. I think that's sort of getting to a point that's a lovely place to wrap up. Is there anything else that you think you'd like to share at all? Anything on your heart that's
I think as for people go like even say that they've got a balcony, it doesn't matter what size you're growing anything in, just grow it and enjoy
yeah,
the process, and
yeah,
Mother Nature never fails to either shock you or surprise you in a good way,
yeah,
but never take it for granted, and it's a journey. And
yeah,
even if you just have a little flower pot of cornflowers, it's a start, even if they're just
yeah,
daisies,
yeah,
the
yeah,
humble daisy, you
yeah.
know,
Yeah,
they're
well,
all
because
here to help.
I think one of your creams is made from daisies, isn't
It
it?
is,
Yeah,
yes, for
yeah,
sure, yes. And
yeah.
it's a beautiful, humble little Bella perennis, and you know, it's got all the properties of arnica. But
Oh wow.
unfortunately, again, when arnica come over,
The
the the,
daisy got forgotten.
the daisy got forgotten. Yeah, but she's a
Oh,
little kinder.
yeah.
So
Oh wow,
um,
and it's everywhere as well, isn't it? It's
it
like
is,
it's
and
one of
and it's
those.
just so good. If
Yeah.
you've got a toothache, if you bite on a daisy, it will help take the pain away
Oh
until you get
wow.
to the till you get to
Yeah.
the
Oh,
dentist.
incredible.
But the cream I make, it's been people come back to me. I make it for bumps and bruises and aches and pains. But people come back to me and they're kind of like, oh, it's really good on sunburn, or it's really good on scalds, or it's really killed my scarring up after my operation. And,
Oh wow.
I've been using it on my knee before my knee replacement, and the doctor's amazed that my knee's still working so much. And you're kind of like, wow. And mums are going, I've
Wow.
been using it on my new baby's bottom because there's no essential oil. So it's
Yeah,
safe with
yeah,
children because it's a soothing one. I didn't want to risk anybody.
yeah.
And and you're kind of like, oh, thank you for telling me. And then you've got other elderly ladies going, oh, it's helping my restless legs. And I go,
Oh
oh,
wow,
thank you
okay.
very much. So
Oh,
this little pot of wonder. So every time
yeah.
I go out and see a daisy, I'm kind of like, oh, you little charmer.
Yeah,
You
no.
know,
Oh,
you
that's
beautiful
amazing.
little thing. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm gonna have to go and look up about daisies now. Hadn't
yes.
realised anything about that. So
Well, the
that's
old name for it used to be called bruisewort.
okay. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's
Oh,
obviously became daisy and day's eye because obviously it opens up with the sun.
yeah.
But it's actually one of the wildflowers that have actually grow all year round. You
Yeah.
might
Yeah,
not
you
see so many
do.
of them in the winter, but you do see
Yeah.
an odd one blooming still.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're amazing and they're so
yeah.
resilient as well, aren't they? I think
They
that's
are.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, they're one of
So
the one things that tends to hang on in our like, over tidy
exactly.
gardens and lawns and stuff. The little
And you can eat them. You can put them in your salad, and you'll get lots
oh.
of goodness from them. So
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
incredible. Oh, that's
Yeah,
perfect. Oh,
because
I
I'm a
love
keen
that. Yeah.
forager as well. I love going out, you know, like cuckoo flowers, cuckoo schmock. I won't over forage out there. I'll take a few because I'm also very aware that the orange tipped butterfly needs that to lay its eggs on.
Yeah.
So I'll take a few and then I go, no, no more now. It's all
Yeah.
butterflies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's important. I mean, I also do a little bit of foraging and it's very important to just have that awareness of just taking a little bit, making sure you
exactly.
leave plenty for other species and nature and
Exactly.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if we all learnt to share and not over gouge on stuff, then there's plenty for
Yeah.
everybody, I think, even
Yeah.
the wildlife. Yeah.
Oh, well, brilliant. Well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Wendy. It's
Thank
been
you,
absolutely a
Fiona.
pleasure to learn
Thank
more
you.
about you and wooing the willows as well.
Thank you
And
very much. Yeah.
yeah, definitely off to go and learn a bit more about our humble Daisy, I think.
Yeah,
So,
please do, because
yeah,
she's a beautiful little thing, so tiny, and it offers
perfect.
so much.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you, Wendy.
Speak to you again soon.
Yeah. the-
Bye bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Nurtured by Nature podcast. I truly hope this conversation has brought some hope and inspiration into your life. I would love to have these messages ripple out across the world. So if you can, please share this episode with your friends, leave a review on your favourite podcast player, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. I would love to hear from you, so please feel free to connect with me on the links provided in the podcast description. But most importantly, thank you so much for being a part of this journey with me. But don't forget to simply get out there and enjoy the natural world.